Church. My name is Matt Maurer. I'm a he, him. I'm here to read announcements. It's normally announcements, but today it's announcement. There's only one. This week on Wednesday, there's a UU meditation group online at 7 p.m. That's the only announcement.
Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Augusta. Thank you for joining us this morning in working on our mission to acting together to create a beloved community with compassion, reason, and respect, empowering us to promote a more just society. My name is Barbara Bowen. I use she, her pronouns. And today I'm co-creating this service with our guest speakers, Frank Carl, Stephen Heyl, and Tim Nelken. Our pianist, Aaron Dixon, who is substituting for Joe Patchen this morning, and his assistant, Bill Weber. Our talented folks on the tech deck back there, and all of you. We are co-creating this service together. And in respect for this sacred moment and each other, could you all be sure to put your devices on worship mode? If you're a first-time visitor today, we encourage you to stop by the greeters table following the service to get more acquainted with the church. Our membership coordinator, Fern Smith, who is right back there at the door, hi Fern, would love to chat with you and find out more about your interests. The blue card that you'll find in the seat pocket in front of you can be a great guide for that conversation. You're also more than welcome to join us for coffee and snacks after worship in the common room. Existing community members will know newcomers by their green or red name tags. These different colors indicate how comfortable folks are with engaging with new people as they explore a new experience. Green means, please speak to me, let's get to know each other right away. Red means, you can say hi to me, but I would prefer to get to know folks more slowly over time. And for those of you on Zoom, please consider staying online after the service to chat and connect with each other. So whether you're here in person or virtually, we welcome you and we are glad that you have joined us today to hear what our speakers have to share. If afterwards you're interested in discussing it further with them, I hope you'll join us back here in the sanctuary at 12:30 after coffee. And now let us begin our service.
In biology, evolution is a process of change in all forms of life over generations. And evolutionary biology is a study of how evolution occurs. Biological populations evolve through genetic changes that correspond to changes in the organism's observable traits. Genetic changes include mutations, which are caused by damage or replication errors in the organism's DNA. As the genetic variation of a population drifts randomly over generations, natural selection gradually leads traits to become more or less common based on the relative reproductive success of the organisms with those traits. The age of Earth is about 4.5 billion years. The earliest undisputed evidence of life on Earth dates from at least 3.5 billion years. Evolution does not attempt to explain the origin of life, but it does explain how early life forms evolved into the complex ecosystem that we see today. Based on the similarities between all present-day organisms, all life on Earth is assumed to have originated through common descent from a universal ancestor from which all known species have diverged through the process of evolution.
Good morning. Barbara already introduced me as Bill Webster. I am going to lead us in a round. I'm not sure if the word, do we have a slide for the round? Maybe don't. It's hymn number 1003 in the teal hymn book. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to... Okay, yes, rise as you're willing or able. I'm going to teach the two. There are 4 parts to this, but we're only going to do 2 parts. I'm going to teach both parts to the whole congregation, and then I'm going to split you in 2, all right? All right, the first part, give me an F, please. Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? And then the second line is, where do we come from? Where do we come from? Okay, those of you with high voices, take the second part after we sing through the first part twice, okay? So here we go. Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? last time. Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Very good, thank you. You may be seated.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Susan, and I'm part of the pastoral care team. And this is the point in our service where we do our joys and sorrows. And that's it, guys. Thanks.
It's time to sing the children out. Am I correct? Yeah. Can we get that slide up? As you go, may joy surround you. As you go, may you grow. Know our love is with you always. As you go, as you go.
So nice to see all the children we have here. Now, for our time of meditation and contemplation, please make yourself comfortable and relaxed as we center ourselves for a few moments of quiet contemplation, to put aside our distractions and become fully present here and now. And in this quiet moment, I'd like you to consider this: how wonderful and marvelous has been the path the universe has taken over billions of years to bring into being this planet with just the right conditions to allow life to evolve and provide the multitude of little changes and chances that led through all those uncounted years down to you, sitting here and now with the ability to reason and wonder and strive to understand how and why we are here at all. One of the most wonderful things I have found about this church is that it offers us the opportunity to meet and learn about and from people of many different beliefs and opinions, that we can listen and discuss, question and consider without argument or ill will. Through these interactions, we can find our own beliefs expanded and perhaps even evolved. Certainly, we can gain a wider perspective and understanding and acceptance of the beliefs of others. For example, there could hardly be a greater difference in approach to spiritual matters than that between our speakers today and myself. Yet I look forward to hearing what they have to say and seeing how it reflects on my own outlook. This is not an opportunity to be often found in this society of ours. I hope that you value it as I do. And I hope that you will join me in offering financial support to this church that supports and cherishes our differences. As always, checks and cash are gratefully received, or you may use text to give using the information that's about to appear on the screens. Would the ushers please come forward? Thank you all for your overflowing generosity.
Today, Stephen, Tim, and I will discuss how our acceptance of evolution affects our lives. Stephen will speak first, then Tim, and finally me. Stephen?
Modern technology. My name is Stephen Heyl. Have he, him pronouns. I've been asked to share a short summary of how Darwin's scientific theories, and particularly how the book On the Origin of Species by Natural Selection, have affected me. I'm not a scientist. I just like to think about things. And more importantly, I like to learn how things work. That is all things: science, politics, art. It may sound a bit strange, but Darwin's writing, that most people consider scientific work, actually caused me to undergo a type of spiritual awakening. Darwin's theory affected me in two main ways. One, once I realized that all life on Earth was connected, I began to see all life around me a little bit differently. Two, once I became aware of the vast stretches of time the Earth has been around, large scale, basically human corals seem to me kind of stupid. I never had an aha moment about the theory of evolution. I don't remember exactly when I first heard about it, but I must have heard about the theory sometime in high school. Some teacher was probably talking about evolution, and I decided, yes, that makes sense. So that must be how the world works. And then I never thought much more about it until I started reading about life and evolution after college. Also, the theory of evolution was never a religious problem. I was close to people of faith, such as my grandfather, who was a Baptist minister. And no one I ever knew said anything negative about the theory of evolution. I was just encouraged to examine the world critically and only accept those things that I was comfortable with. But after college, I read The Voyage of the Beagle, which is a very engaging adventure story, as well as a gripping description of life in South America. But as it's nonfiction, it led me to read other books by Darwin and other books by more contemporary scientists. After I began reading about evolution, I realized something that struck me as pretty important. The theory placed all life forms, both animals and plants, as part of the same family. One of my favorite sayings illustrates this. Don't take yourself too seriously. You share 40% of your DNA with a banana. Unfortunately, I don't know exactly who said that originally, and I recently read that 40% of common genes is probably a bit off. The percentage is probably closer to 17%. But that doesn't change the basic idea. All living things are evolutionary cousins. Of course, Darwin knew nothing about DNA and the chemistry of life when he wrote Origin of Species. That knowledge would have to come a century later. But in any reading that I have done that mentions Darwin's main theory, the writer has always stressed it is amazing how much Darwin got right. Even though Darwin didn't know the exact mechanics of how life works and changes, he very specifically proposed all life had a common ancestor. Although Darwin admitted he did not know how life began, he said, once life started, natural selection accounts for all the life that we see around us today. To start, I have more respect for all forms of life, even the mold I find growing on my bathroom sink. Before I clean that mold away, I will contemplate for a second at least its complexity in existence and its persistence to stay alive, whether I like it or not. Then and only then will I clean the sink. One of my main activities in retirement is gardening. And while most gardeners enjoy watching plants grow, there's a little bit of extra satisfaction I get when I observe growing plants, when I realize the plant and I came from the same root. In many ways, we are the same thing. Secondly, there is the issue of time. When Darwin wrote Origin of Species, he knew evolution would require a long period of time to occur. But Darwin was thinking in hundreds of millions of years. My understanding is the current span of life on Earth is estimated at around 3.5 billion years. When you contemplate that vast stretch of time, you feel very, very small. But when you think a little bit more, you feel privileged that you've been given the chance to observe at least a little bit of life's journey. It's kind of like when you realize how large the universe really is, you also feel small, but then when you stop to think about it, yeah, you feel privileged to be able to understand the universe at all. Organized conflicts, wars, are a very recent human invention. 6,000 to 7,000 years at the most, probably less. On the time scale of life, that is only a passing moment. So any type of organized fight is at best an absurd waste. And with modern weapons, people starting wars are playing a very dangerous game that could end up with human extinction. But however, that plays out, life will go on. And I take some comfort in that, knowing I might not be here, but life still goes on. And the next speaker is Tim Nelken.
Thank you, Stephen. I'm Tim Nelken. My pronouns are he, him. And Frank asked that I speak for 7 minutes. You may as well expect that the effort will be much abbreviated, and I'll probably lapse into trying to entertain y'all with a little song and dance for the balance of the time. I grew up accepting that we Homo sapiens had evolved from the great apes, but with no conviction as to how it all occurred, something akin to flipping on the light switch and expecting the lights to go on, but not understanding how it all came to be. And it was there, but with no examination as how it came to be. And admittedly, without much inclination to explore the question. I had more important things to think about, girls, hanging out with friends, and generally ignoring anything scientific beyond what I had to learn to pass a test. I didn't delve too deeply into the question because rarely did studies get in the way of my high school education. It wasn't until I entered the Citadel, that bastion of critical thinking, it was much later that I encountered and embraced critical thinking, and I'm still working on it. I took biology in college for the first time and encountered Captain Sperm Timmerman, that I began to get a grasp for the idea of evolution. I do remember the good professor driving home that the environment demands put on an organism, force it to either adapt or go extinct. It was emphasized that it is not the strongest that gets to live and pass on its genes, rather the organism that is most adaptive. Given enough time, the organism will change to accomplish itself, to meet the conditions of its surrounding, or its goodbye. The missing ingredient from my slow acceptance of thinking about evolution was eventually supplied by my learning that it was not divine inspiration from a supreme being that formed the concept for Darwin, rather good old-fashioned observation. Because of the isolation of the Galapagos Islands, Darwin was able to comparatively study the conditions as one would study life in a drop of pond water under a microscope. But again, the secret ingredient was and is observation without attempting to assign differences found to some divine intervention. Just think, if there is intelligent design at work from a supreme being that is pushing perfection as to development, I should have the eyesight of an eagle, the olfactory capabilities of a bloodhound, and the hearing of a deer. There would be no need for more than one species, since intelligent design would have achieved perfection and no changes would be required. But thankfully, that is not how things work. And it is therefore that we have varieties of flora and fauna, even fungi. After Chernobyl, a variety of fungus learned to digest nuclear waste, and all the species that have prospered have adapted in accordance with their ecology. The reluctance of acceptance of evolution by religions and governments is as a direct result of the fear of loss of control of the story as found in texts of the Bible, the Quran, and societal myths as the origin. There is a preference for sacrificing truth for the sake of order. I will readily admit that I have never read on the origin of species. I did try, but found the style of writing daunting and gave up well before I finished the first chapter. After that experience, I relied on distillations of Darwin's work and the work that he inspired. If there was any curiosity on my part as to how it all happened, it was simply wait until some paleontologist found the elusive missing link. I didn't really get an appreciation for the how of it all until rather recently when reading Yuval Harari's *Sapiens*, and came across the simple explanation that 6 million years ago, a female ape had 2 daughters. One became the mother or the grandmother of the chimpanzee, the other the grandmother of Homo. Mind you, there have been many mutations in a variety of homos to include Homo erectus, Homo neanderthals, and Homo sapiens. And for us, the Homo sapiens, given another 10,000 years, undoubtedly, we will be very different from who we are today. We should last so long already. Evolution takes time, and for an organism that has long times between generations, the change is slower. At the rate that we are poisoning our planet, the time to adapt may not be sufficient to provide the opportunity to save ourselves on a planet with 8 billion Homo sapiens that has only a carrying capacity of 2 to 2.5 billion. Darwin and subsequent evolutionary thinkers provided me with an understanding of how the biological systems work, but failed to provide adequate explanations on how the building blocks of these systems came to be. To the rescue came Ursula Goodenough in The Sacred Depths of Nature, with a blueprint of the origin of chemical elements and how life evolved and works. The explanation of emergence as something else from nothing but provided the erector set of understanding on how the universe works. And because it comes from good enough, there is reverence for nature in its entirety. But give credit to Charles Darwin. He was the fellow who initiated the journey to understand how life on this planet has gotten from single-cell protozoa to complex organisms such as you and I. And I promise you, you do not want to watch me now sing and dance. Frank?
I was formally introduced to the theory of evolution in zoology class my sophomore year in college. That was in 1965, 60 years ago. I graduated from high school in rural East Central Pennsylvania, where the theory of evolution was either not understood or not welcome. And of course, not taught. To give you an idea how rural my high school was, there were about 600 students in grades 7 through 12, collected from about 400 square miles. And that part of Pennsylvania is known as North Alabama. My sophomore year, I was also taking biblical literature and religion. Gettysburg College is associated with the Lutheran Church. Both courses contradicted what I was taught as a child, which could be described as creationism light. One of my first courses in graduate school was systems biogenesis. That is how each of the 7 functional systems in humans developed evolutionally. That is the nervous system, the digestive system, circulatory system, excretory system, respiratory system, muscular system, and skeletal system. For example, for the digestive system, the course followed the evolutionary progression from bacterial phagocytosis to the alimentary canal in humans. Even 60 years ago, evolution was an established fact, but the word theory has stuck to that fact. The mechanisms operating within evolution can be controversial, but the general principle is established. As a biochemist, I know that the same basic biochemical reactions occur in paramecia and humans. That is a product of evolution. For example, I know that active methyl generation, the system I worked on for 30 years, occurs in all living cells. So evolution has not only had an effect on my life, but it formed a basis for my profession. In addition, the theory allowed me to come to my own conclusions about the origin of life as opposed to the biblical story. However, I should note here that Darwin's theory dealt only with the origin of species and not the origin of life. The origin of life is a subject for another time. That subject may be more controversial than the origin of species, which deals only with the propagation of changes within the life that already exists. The origin of life, on the other hand, would deal with questions like, what is life? How did it begin? Or does it exist anywhere else? What do you think? See you back here at 12:30.
Below me I feel no
Darwin's final paragraph in his book on the origin of species. Quote, there is grandeur in this view of life, with its several powers, having been originally breathed into a few forms or into one. And that whilst the planet has gone cycling on according to the fixed law of gravity, from so simple a beginning, endless forms, most beautiful and most wonderful, have been and are being evolved. This is a quote from the original publication in 1859. Subsequent publications, unfortunately, add by the Creator after breathed.
Soul